Hello, I'm the 10-minute English teacher. Let's get you exam ready. Today we're thinking about GCSE English Language Paper 2 and I'm going to be teaching you how to write a speech. Before we get going, don't forget to like and subscribe. There are plenty of things on the channel to help you improve your writing. Okay, let's learn how to write a speech. So if you are here because you want to improve your writing and learn how to write a speech, you're quite welcome. But if you're a GCSE candidate, we'll think very quickly about the paper. You have an hour for the reading section, and following that, and that's our focus for today, you're going to have 45 minutes to write a piece of discursive writing. So the writing section, you've got 45 minutes. The first 5 minutes you should be spending planning your response, and the very end of that time is spent editing, which means checking back carefully, but also making some new alternative choices, maybe putting a line through some words you've chosen and choosing something more ambitious. Here's what you mark for. So your appropriate ideas, that's why it's important to plan. The accuracy of your writing, that's why it's important to edit. Your punctuation, you want to be ambitious and use some semicolons and colons and such like. Your paragraphing, and if you don't know how to paragraph, there is a video from me to take you through exactly why we use paragraphs. Your sentence structures, make sure you're using some fronted adverbials and relative clauses. Again, there are videos on the channel to help you with that. Your vocabulary, which is something that you can amend and think about when you edit, and the techniques that you use. So thinking about techniques, let's just very quickly think about discursive techniques or rhetorical devices that you might be using. So here are some effective ones to use. Address the reader. Remember, you've got an audience. If you're writing a speech, you're going to be addressing them. The same is the case with an article. In fact, if you're writing an article or a speech, you can get away with doing exactly the same thing in many ways. So address the reader, make sure that you are challenging them. The rule of three is something that is easy to do, effective and persuasive. So use three things to make your point now and again. Use some rhetorical questions. Repetition of phrases or key words is something that will be persuasive, and something that's really effective is to address the counter argument. Some people might say and then explain what someone who doesn't agree with you thinks, and then explain why your opinion is more valid. That would be addressing the counter argument. All of those things are very effective. Less effective are these ideas. So using the opinions of fictional experts. It's not wrong to do, but it's less effective, and it doesn't always lead to you creating a really persuasive and sophisticated tone, bringing in some professor from some university or something like that. It's not something you're going to be marked down for, but it might be something that doesn't really make your piece of writing seem really convincing and original. So be mindful of that. Made up statistics are also something that they don't really lend a persuasive and really believable tone to your writing. So I would recommend avoiding just using made up statistics. And definitely don't mention the statement when you're in the exam. If it says, what are your thoughts on the statement? Don't start with, I agree with the statement, because speeches and articles do not open that way. Opening with addressing the reader would be a lot more effective than doing that. Okay, today's question is this. Social media and the internet causes more harm than good. Write a speech explaining your opinions on this statement. And if you're asked to write an article, in many ways you're doing the same thing. But we're just making sure that we address the reader in our speech, knowing that we are pretending that we've got an audience and it's a piece of writing for them. So I'm going to start in my first 5 minutes by planning. I'm going to take you through my plan now, and then in today's session you've got an opportunity to write each paragraph that is a part of my plan. Here's what I would be doing. So I'm going to start with an introduction, and I'm going to establish that I agree. There isn't a right or wrong answer. In fact, I'm probably in favour of the internet. We're on it right now. You're using it to revise and to learn. So I'm not somebody who is actually opposed to the internet or young people using it, but for today's purposes, we're going to pretend that I'm against the internet. There is no right or wrong answer when it comes to the exam. You just need a position to choose, and then you're going to argue for or against. So I'm going to start with that introduction, a little paragraph setting the tone. After that, I'm going to explain that it's a distraction to young people and they could spend their time doing much more positive and productive things. I'm going to talk about the outdoors and the idea that the internet stops you from going outside and spending time doing other things and having hobbies and that sort of thing. The counter argument for me, I'm going to talk about the fact that the internet has been something that's led to a lot of very positive protest movements that have gained traction online, like the Black Lives Matter movement and the Me Too movement, have all become popular online and have led to social change. But I'm going to say that haven't we had big movements like the civil rights movement that have been successful without the internet? And in fact, if we weren't just spending our time retweeting hashtags and actually doing something that counts, wouldn't we have a better world? That would be me taking on the counter argument. I'll then talk about online dangers to young people and things like scammers, as well as things like online bullying. And then I'm going to conclude by summing up my argument. And that will be my speech. So now you're going to have a bit of time for part one. I've started you off. You can steal my work if you want to. So the internet is a huge part of our lives. Every milestone and achievement in our lives are shared and reviewed by others, and we are increasingly spending more time in the glow of screens. That's the opening to my first paragraph. You're going to finish it off now. So you're writing a paragraph that ends by explaining how we should be thinking about how much impact the internet has on our lives. You've got 5 minutes now to do that. You'll hear from me when your time is up. Okay, you've had 5 minutes. I'm going to move you on. We're going to think about part 2 of the plan, and you'll have some time to respond to that now. So, part 2. We're going to be writing a paragraph exploring how the internet and social media can provide a distraction. And here's how I'm starting that paragraph, or it could be 2 paragraphs. You could use this as a standalone 1-sentence paragraph if you want, but this is our second section. And it begins like this. How do we expect young people to be successful when social media is such an inescapable force in their lives? So you have now got 5 minutes to continue and complete this section of our speech. You'll hear from me when your time is up. Okay, you've had 5 minutes. We are going to move on now to think about part 3 of our speech. And this is what we're going to be doing. We're going to be writing a paragraph about spending time outdoors. This is also an opportunity for you to be descriptive if you want to be, and include some evocative descriptions of the outdoors. Rather than being spellbound by their phones, young people today... Okay, you've had 5 minutes writing that section of your speech. Let's move on. We're going to think about part 4 now. We're going to address the counter-argument. The internet has led to some positive social change. The Black Lives Matter movement gained traction online and you could talk about other movements and other things that have been achieved through social media. One of the things that I'd be saying is that Martin Luther King managed to lead the civil rights movement without TikTok, and the suffragettes didn't have a WhatsApp group. Saying something like that is going to make you sound relatively sophisticated. Remember, your examiner will have marked hundreds of papers. Saying something that's a little bit original is going to make you stand out and you'll be awarded for it. You've got 5 minutes to write this section of your response. Okay, you've had 5 minutes. Let's move on to part 5. So 5 minutes now to talk about the risks that people face as users of the internet, such as scammers who pose a risk to us. So the internet, in spite of what measures we may take, places people at risk of being exploited. So thinking about the risks online bullying, and financial scammers, things like that, you've got 5 minutes to explore those risks that we are faced as users of the internet. Okay, you've had 5 minutes. Let's move on to the final part of our written response, part 6. You're going to conclude by reminding your audience of the range of things you've mentioned. So in this little section, maybe a paragraph or two, you're going to explore the different things that you've mentioned very concisely, just summing up your response. And you could finish with a call to action. What do you actually want people to do next? You've got 5 minutes to wrap up your response. Okay, you've had 5 minutes, and at this point we've written a whole text. It's now the last and most important part of the 45 minutes. We're going to be editing. So to edit, you are going to check the accuracy of your spelling, punctuation and grammar. We all make mistakes. It's part of writing. Editing your work involves checking that accuracy and amending any mistakes you might have made. The second thing, and this is where you're definitely going to improve your outcomes, change some of the choices of your vocabulary by striking a line through them and writing a more ambitious word choice above, not in the margin. So above the piece of writing, show your secondary choice of vocabulary, change a word and write it above. You've got 5 minutes to edit your response. You'll hear from me when your time is up. You've had 5 minutes. So at this point, we have finished our response and it will be ready to submit. So in front of you now, you should have a really well-crafted whole text. Let's just remind you of the writing section. It starts with 5 minutes planning and it ends with you editing, and you need to plan very carefully. And a reminder of the things that you will be marked for on the day. Appropriate ideas, that's why planning is important. Your accuracy, that's where editing comes in. Your punctuation, paragraphing, your sentence structures, your vocabulary and your techniques. Okay, check out the other videos on my channel. I'll continue to add content. Feel free to ask something you'd like to see me cover in the comments section. Don't forget to like and subscribe and share, and keep revising.